Hello, today we're going to learn how to use shops in Houdini to create custom shaders. So we can, for example, render motion vectors that we can later use in Nuke to generate motion blur afterwards. So let's jump into Houdini. This is where we left off last time. And let's go into our ROP network. And first of all, let's disable the motion blur because we are going to generate these ourselves. Okay, so you can also see in the mantra node that we have some lights under objects, candidate lights. If you remove these and if you remove the headlight, you notice that we see nothing at all, and that is because we are using a default shader that requires light, and without the lights we can't see anything. So let's now create our own shader. So here at the top, press tab and type shop. And this is actually a really old thing that no one uses anymore. And you could just as well use a net network. And it works the exact same way. And you probably will need to use a different kind of network if you're using a newer version of Houdini. So let's start with the shop net and press tab and type material network, or rather a material shader builder. And you can see that you can do the same here in metnet. Press tab and type met and material builder. And if you go inside this, you can see you get a vex builder here, and in the shopnet we will get a vex builder that looks exactly the same. So let's do it in shop just to be more old-fashioned this time. So let's first of all just delete everything because we are going to we are going to create our own material. Now we have an empty network, and the first node we need is an output node. So press tab and type output, and then select output variables and parameters. And here you have CF, OF, AF, and F. And depending on the type of renderer you use, you will use different parameters here. So for a physically based shader, you would use the F input, that is a BSDF. And if you use the older ray tracer, you would use instead the color here. And because we are using the physically based renderer, we are going to need to use F. Okay, so the next thing is let's bring in our color from the vertices. So press tab and type bind. And here let's change the name to $OS for operator string, and change the name to color diffuse CD. And if you right click name, you can see this will expand to CD. So now we have color data to work with, and we want to pass this to the emissive color, and this is not available here in the BSDF. So we can instead use, if you press tab and then bind export, and do the same here, but instead call this CE for emissive. And then you can connect the color to the emissive. And let's check that we got the right result. So go up and right click and show the vex code. And you can see this is now a float, so this is not what we want. So let's close this and go back and change the type here to be a color. And this should be fine, but let's set it to color anyway. And now let's go up and check the code. And now we have a vector color and a vector emissive, and the emissive is exported to the surface context. And the surface context is used for shaders. And this just set the emissive to the color in the vertex. So this should now work. Let's go here and call this my material and assign this to our geometry, the rendered geometry. So P and the material in the shopnet and my material. And now you can see that we get the color without any light. And we don't even need this velocity blur anymore, so we can disable that. Okay, so the next thing, by the way, let's just call this my shop, just to make it consistent. And we can delete this matnet because that works exactly the same way. So here we have our setup. So next we want the velocity vectors. So let's go back in the material. And this works the same way as the emissive color. We can just do a bind and OS and call this V for the velocity. And this should be a vector. And let's output this using the bind export. And we have to type here V because otherwise it would use the same name. So V out here. And let's connect this to the output and confirm the vex code that we generated. So here we have now the emissive color and the velocity exported to the surface context. And the emissive color is the vertex color and the velocity color is just the velocity. Okay, so now we have to go back to the mantra node. So let's go to my ROP and mantra and P to edit, and let's go to images and here go to extra image planes and just delete everything here and go down and extra image planes. Let's add one by pressing plus, and then our variable is V, and this will now create an extra image plane in the EXR file for the velocity, and we can render this out as last time. And the result for this is then what you see here. This is the red, green and blue for the XYZ velocity components. So I hope this was helpful and see you next time. Over and out.